My name is Matt Wimber, and I'm the assistant manager here at the Hartsville Museum, and thank you so much for joining us for our first ever in-person lecture as part of our monthly lecture series here at the Hartsville Museum. We have a great crowd here in person, and we hope we have a lot of you joining us online. So as I mentioned, this is our first in-person lecture series, so if you have any kind of technical issues, just bear with us. And I will remind you all that the purpose of these lectures are to educate about Hartsville history and to provide a lot of thought-provoking content, which I know we'll hear today. We want to welcome Mr. Emory Waters. Mr. Waters is the author of the book, The City We Knew But Everybody Forgot, Hartsville, the African American Experience. We are so glad to have Mr. Waters. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Waters is a native of Hartsville, and I think we just love to hear more about you.
Well, there's not a lot to tell. I'm a native of Hartsville. I'm originally from the area that we used to call the Hill or Red Town. I'm a graduate of St. Joseph's Catholic School, Butler High School, Benedict College, and Indiana University. Spent a little time in the military, 2 trips to Vietnam, the 82nd Airborne. I came home from the Army, and Dr. Heatley insisted, or rather told me, that I wasn't going to be in Hartsville, I was going to college. So I entered Benedict College, and I wanted to get out because I was a little bit older than the class. And I graduated in 3 years, lucky enough to get a scholarship to Indiana University. I started working on my PhD, but I got tired of being broke. So I got out and I started to teach after I finished my master's. I taught for a while, and as luck would have it, I was fortunate enough to be selected by the FBI. I did 26 years, 1 year of sick leave, which gave me 27 years. After the FBI, a very rewarding career. I was fortunate enough to get the job as director of security for Major League Baseball, Washington Nationals baseball team. After the league sold the team, I left that position and I became chief of police for the school system in Maryland. And I did that for 5 years. I came home and I said, well, I'm tired. I sat home for 3 years and I said, I need to do something. I'm going crazy. So I started contracting. I started teaching law enforcement security. And about a year and a half ago, I said, that's it, I'm through. So now I'm here, and I'm back and forth. My mother just passed away recently in January, so I'm back and forth between Maryland and here. Eventually, my lovely bride and I, and hopefully the grandchildren, will move back to Hartsville. So we're back and forth between Maryland and Hartsville.
And we're certainly glad that you are here. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate everything that you've shared with us so far. So just a little context of your relationship and involvement with the Hartsville Museum. You came in last year, I believe, looking for material that we had in composing your book. You want to tell us a little?
Yes, I was, the research was taking quite a toll on me, and I'd run out of places to go because there's really not a lot written about the African American community in Hartsville. So I came in one day and I asked you if you had yearbooks. I was trying to get all the teachers that had taught at Butler. And you had about 5 or 6, I think, and you said, I said, well, can I take these home and look up? She said, no, you can't take them home, but I'll make a picture for you. So you copied all of those and you gave them to me, and I went home and very tediously banged them out as I did everything else. So after that, I stopped my periodic and we talked, and we stayed in touch. And I've been fortunate enough that you've taken on a number of my books, and you've done quite well selling them for me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we just appreciate the opportunity to have these here. We always say, you know, we're a history museum, we collect this information, but it doesn't do us any good if we can't share the information with others and continue to grow. And that's part of the purpose of this lecture series, is to educate and make sure that this information lives on for years and years to come. So we can talk all day about our collection, but we're here to talk about your book. So before we dive in, I just want to remind our viewers that we would love to hear your questions if you have any for Mr. Waters, and we'll have a portion near the end of the lecture for a question and answer period. The way that will work is we'll start with our live audience members first. They'll ask their questions. I'll repeat it for those who might be joining us virtually. And then Andrea will read our questions from our virtual audience members. So go ahead and start thinking about those and send those in. And just a reminder, if you're interested, Mr. Waters will be here for a little while after the lecture to sign copies of his book, which we do have available, as Mr. Waters mentioned here, at the Hartsville Museum. So, Emory, let's start from the beginning. Why this book and why now?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll shorten it up for you. I got a neighbor about 5 years ago, gave me a book for Christmas about Hartsville. So what I did is I thumbed through the book, and I saw 4 lines about the African American community in Hartsville. It says something to the effect of there's a colored school in Hartsville called Butler. It was located on 6th Street, and that was the gist of the book. So I wasn't offended. I was just a little taken aback because, you know, there's more to Hartsville about the African American community than 3 or 4 lines. So subsequently, I talked to Dr. Heatley, and we just started going back, rehashing a whole bunch of stuff that had happened in our lifetime. And most of it, you know, we got very memorable times laughing and talking about the things that happened. So I just decided that maybe Doc, you should write a book. He goes, "Oh, I'm not gonna write a book." So I said, well, basically I'll write. So, and I can't leave him out because he's what I call my chief historian.
Okay.
He's a few years older than me. I'll just say a few. And he knows, you know, his past in Hartsville. He was the chairman of the Butler Heritage Foundation for, I forgot how many years, probably about 15 years. So he knows the history of Hartsville. He went to, after talking with him and after, you know, understanding what I wanted to do, I decided to go and do it. And the research was tough.
For me, and what I mean is, what is or was the African American experience?
That goes way back.
Yeah.
I can give you 2 perspectives, which will be encompassed in one. But I'll take you back to my era when I was in college. I went to Benedict College, and then we had a number of students that went to
Then we mentioned that the city that's been forgotten.
yeah, everybody knew it, but now it's,
Right.
but that generation, the history somehow is dying. We still have a number of people that can still give you lots of history about the city of Hartsville, but, you know, those people are few and far between. And now, the younger African American kids have no concept of what Hartsville was like in what I call the booming days of the African American community. And very few Caucasians know what Hartsville was about. Give you an example, I went to the library looking for yearbooks and looking for information on Hartsville, and I don't think she's a librarian, but the lady said, what school are you talking about? I said, Butler High School. There's no school here called Butler High School. I said, Miss, I graduated from Butler. So she goes, I'm not familiar with that. So no, we went up in those books. I said, okay, that's how back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how, yeah, absolutely.
But it's a city that was known throughout South Carolina, throughout the east, up and down the East Coast, that people knew about. Because there was things that were happening here, there was a livelihood here, and there was work here.
Right. And like you mentioned, Butler closed in '82, I believe, and then there's integration and whatnot. You mentioned just now about your experience, I guess, growing up here. So can you maybe less about Hartsville as a whole, but just kind of your life growing up here? If you were to look out of your front door or front window, could you kind of talk about the neighborhoods, the community?
Every neighborhood was unique in itself, and in the book I mentioned a few. Hoptown, which is, I guess, where most of the clubs and where Buck was located. Red Town of the Hill is up on this side of the railroad track at 6th Street, all the way up to Carolina Avenue. Then it was Hopkins Bottom. Hopkins ran the sawmill, and he had a section over, I guess, where Walmart is now, where people live. And then it was South Side. Became South Side after the school was built.
Right.
There was people out there. And then there was what we call the country. There were a whole bunch of conclaves around the city that we call the country. So in every different place was unique. It had its own uniqueness about it.
Right.
Hoptown, everything happened in Hoptown. You had all the clubs, most of the clubs. Buck was there. You had the baseball field, the football field, the basketball courts. And that was one of the places where people congregated to hang out, to do things. You could find people either there, either St. Joseph's baseball field, after school, if you weren't working. But then again, during the school year, the first 2 weeks, school Butler was let go half day because there was still cotton in the fields. So we left school, we went to pick cotton. And like I said, every neighborhood was very unique because everybody worked for somebody. And I can recall picking cotton for one person that was paying $2 cents a pound. And then the word got around, somebody else was paying 2.5 cents a pound. And by the time I graduated, somebody was paying 4 cents a pound. So, you can work all day, you pick 100 pounds, you got $4. And then if you didn't have any money, you borrowed 50, 75 cents to eat lunch, so you didn't get the $4. So it was unique, it was tough, it was honest, and it was fair. And on Sundays, all of the communities went to church. So if you wanted to do something on Sunday, you went to church, because if you did go to church, your parents weren't going to let you do anything else. It was a community that was well grounded in attitude, aptitude, and faith.
Right. And I had never heard of any of these communities until I started working here at the museum. So do you think these communities still exist as they were, and is it still important to recognize these separate communities?
As I stated previously, a lot of people don't know the names of these communities, right, because a young lady that was helping me do some typing, she was, after I gave her the transcript, she was doing it, she said, "Where's Hoptown?" I said, "You grew up in Hoptown." So she goes, "Where's Red Town?" I said, "That's where your grandmother lived."
Right.
She goes, in Son of Vista, so that's across the creek, that's what we used to call it, across the creek. And then she knows where Southside was, but, all of these neighborhoods had, like I said, they were very unique in themselves, and looking out of my window, the biggest memory of it all is that everybody loved everybody. The entire neighborhood took care of the children. There's no such thing as you could go down the street and do something wrong and then not get back to your parents. Because first of all, they would tan you high, then they'd bring you home, and then your parents would tan you high. So it was a community effort. And you know, everybody in the community knew everything about everybody. So we kind of took care of each other. And that's a side of Hartsville that I can't say that the Caucasian community knew, because we were a city within a city.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Great points.
And
Sure.
in addition to that, though not economically affluent, every neighborhood had at least 3 or 4 corner stores. So you didn't, and then just about every yard had a garden in the back, or somebody was growing, you know, we grew chickens, other people grew hogs, some people out in the country grew hogs, and everybody had a garden.
Yeah.
So a lot of our vegetables, we didn't have to go and buy them in the store. Most of the stuff that we bought, what we used to call uptown here, was stuff from furniture stores and stuff like that. You know, it was, I hate to put a label on it, but it was so pricey that it would take our parents forever to pay stuff off. You know, when I went to Catholic school, it was $2 a month.
Right.
We couldn't afford it. So I cleaned the building at night. So it was just, but you know, we were poor, but everybody was poor. And you didn't know how bad you were off because everybody was in the same boat. But it was a love and an understanding that we had for each other.
And that's what's so important. And you mentioned the corner stores, and I'm just thinking now, riding down 6th Street, you don't see that as frequently, and that, I guess that's part of that people have forgotten. So it's great that you're able to retell these stories so we can you know, continue to preserve those.
6th Street was like 125th Street in New York. It had everything on it. It had restaurants, bars, clubs, a recreation center, churches, liquor store, recreation center. That's the first time I saw a real boxing match.
On 6th Street.
On 6th Street, recreation center. It had lights. They played basketball at night. Had a roller skating rink. And all this was outdoors. And that was another place we had. That kind of faded away also. So this is the city we knew. This was part of the city we knew, but it's all fading away.
But it's great to see so much focus on revitalization in the area. I know the community is coming together a lot, especially with help of the city and a lot of community members who want to help preserve that history. So kudos to all those involved with helping to capture those memories and similarly to your efforts as well to document them in the book. I want to move forward a little bit and talking, I guess, about the history. And are there any defining moments in history that stand out to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The big one is the decision, the Supreme Court decision in 1954. Supreme Court versus the Board of Education. Prior to that, you know, with Plessy versus Ferguson, it was said separate but equal. But when this Supreme Court decision was made in 1954, it kind of forced the segregated South, segregated country, to do what was right. And to this day, we don't have separate but equal. We still have degrees. And let me couch my words because I'm not here to offend. I'm here just to give you my opinion of how I would see it. That decision was made in '54, and it didn't come about until 1970 in South Carolina. I can't talk about Texas, but 2 years after slaves were freed, they got something on there called Juneteenth because black people didn't know about it until 2 years later. And here, with the decision of '54, the actual rendering or adhering to the law didn't come out until 1970. So you can see that there's a lag, and you know, the schools themselves, the buildings themselves, it took almost 20 years for Buckle to get a new building. From the time that they moved in 1921, from the old schoolhouse out to where it is now, it took forever. Then a building started, when the rumbling started around the 50s, they started to build slowly but surely little buildings. So there are a number of buildings that I've mentioned in here when they were built, and the time they were built. But my honest belief is these buildings were built because South Carolina did not want African American children going to the white schools.
And it's great to know these kind of stories, and we've had conversations with people recently who have come in talking about their time as being maybe the first to integrate to the junior high, high school, things like that. And in your book, you attempt to capture a lot of the stories, and if not the stories, at least make it notable, these people, these times, these places, things like that. So let me ask, what do you think is, or what are you hoping that your readers of the book will take away from reading the book?
First of all, there's another Hartsville.
Yeah.
And there's a Hartsville that should be growing together. And like I said, I haven't spent as much time here as I would have loved to, because my lovely bride is from Washington, D.C. She was born in Germany, her father's in the military. And we have 2 grandchildren that live about 10 miles from us, and I don't know how I'm going to tear away from this so I can come home. But there are a lot of things that's going to influence the way that things happen here. I hate to, and I rarely even mention things that are political because everybody has their own belief, but we're right now in a position, and in the book I also, like I said, I don't ever intend to offend anybody. I just want to put down some facts about some of the things that have happened here. But we are in a position now where we are going to be pushed farther and farther back into where we came from if somebody doesn't get their act and their head together. And I'm not predicting anything, but if this country doesn't, and if this town, and this state doesn't come together with honesty and truth, we're going to have an issue.
Well, it's great to know that you, like you mentioned earlier, that so many of the communities here in Hartsville are built on that trust and looking out for each other. So we can continue to keep that in mind as we move forward. And with the book, especially, and keeping in mind you're such a distinguished career that you've had, we can now add the title of author to your profile. How does that sit with you? And would you consider yourself an author or just maybe an activist, someone who's?
No, I'm not an activist, and I'm I'll say a so-so author. Mm-hmm. This is my first attempt, and I did this with encouragement from Dr. Healy. He's my mentor. I go way back with him. To this day, we play golf together, we talk. I try to call him at least once a week because he used to tell his son went to school, after the football game was over, he told his son, I want to see you. So every week or so, or every time I come home, I tell him, I want to see you. I want to look at your face and see how you're doing. So there's a lot that I owe to Hartsville. If there's anything that I can do to make it better, if there's anything I can do to make sure that transitioning from where we are to a better place is possible, I'm here to do that. I don't consider myself an activist. I consider myself an honorable person that tells the truth. And the book that I said, I didn't dwell on any racism. It's here. You don't have to worry about it. It's here. You can see it every day. But I mentioned it. There's no need of telling the cook that the pot is black because the cook can see the pot. So like I said, I just highlight some things here, and I try to put forth a history or recapitulation of some of the things that should be highlighted and should be remembered, because as I stated previously, we have kids here that know nothing about our past. And if you forget your past, if you don't know your past, you don't know where you're going. You have no basis, you have no ground, you're not grounded. So it's just like we were growing up. Church was everything. That's how you were grounded. And everything sprang from that.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, the book has done really well. I know we have it for sale here. We have it for sale at many different places around Hartsville. Do you have plans for a sequel, or because you just hit the tip of the iceberg with the history with this book? Are there plans for a sequel or an extended version, perhaps?
There is so much that I didn't put in this book because it was getting too large. And I wanted to keep it, and something else, I figured my views would be a little bit older, so I put it in 14 font instead of 10 and 12. So there are little things that I didn't touch on. Dr. Healy has in here 3 more books like this, in here. I can't talk him into doing it. I told him to sit down and dictate. I can't get it. He told me he's through. He's worked all his life. So we talked, and if he says to me, I think you should try and do it again, I'll do it. But other than that, no. This was love. It took a while.
Well, and it was needed. We're so glad that you published this book, and we'll continue to say, we're here to capture history at the Hartsville Museum, and there are so many platforms to be able to do that. We love people coming in, dropping in, having conversations. That's what we thrive off of. We will stop any day to come listen to these stories to help preserve history and find ways to share that history with others. So viewers, audience members, please keep that in mind. We're here to help preserve and share that history.
Oh, Matt, let me interrupt you for a second. Before I forget, I just want to thank the museum and thank the people in Hartsville. I did no advertising. We put it on Kindle because the publisher said, you got to do this, you got to put it on Kindle. I said, okay, I don't want to do that. Right now, we're over 500 copies, and I've done no advertising. And you people have sold probably 120, 110, somewhere around there. But it's been all word of mouth. And I was cornered one day by a person. Well, what are you doing with all that money? All that money. I said, it cost me $6,000 to do it. So, and what I'm doing is, the proceeds, after I take out enough for a couple dozen golf balls every now and then, is going to my church here, and Benedict College.
And we know the strength in this for the money. It's great as to be able to share that money with others, but we know that you've done this to help preserve history and tell stories.
Absolutely.
And it's been so neat and so well received. We appreciate everything. I want to see what you guys have. Questions from the audience. So the way this will work, if we have questions from the audience, raise your hand and I'll gesture, and then if you'll present your question, I'll read it back so that our viewers who are tuning in live can hear it, and then we'll take questions from our audience or from our Facebook Live viewers. So there are questions from the audience, our live audience. Yes, sir.
Ms. Waters, I've read your book and it's great. I was a faculty member at Butler High School.
Your name, sir?
Johnny Andrews.
I've heard a lot about you. I've heard a lot about you. I heard a lot about you from Dr. Healy and from Matt.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you, and we'll talk after this. But my question is, in the old Marion Avenue Cemetery, one of the stones is a Jack Williams, born in 1830, was a slave, died in 1905. And when I went to try to find him on the census, I had a real hard time identifying him. I finally found him on the 1900 census, living on East Home Avenue, next door to the Lawton family. And his son was in the household next to him. So my question is, how widespread was it in the African American community for people to live in what was considered the white community? Were they part of the staff, the household, Or do you know any oral history about that?
I don't know, but that very well could be, but then again, you had smatterings of individuals that lived all over Hartsville. In some of the areas, you had for example, the sharecroppers, they lived on land that was owned by people they were working with. And then in certain areas around here, you had people that lived in back houses. So it's hard to say exactly. I don't know. But
And
there
that's
people,
what-
people lived everywhere. As a matter of fact,
Well, yeah, there were several. I think it was a practice almost then for people who worked for white families to live with them. And there's a house right down here on Fifth Street, and I can't think of Minnie Mae's last name, but she worked for a white family, and they built her a home. That's what was her name? Mamie. Right. So I think it was very prevalent.
yeah,
And I think Hartsville was kind of small then. But when I look at the history of Jerusalem Baptist Church, now the history that I found says that Jerusalem Baptist Church started in a bush arbor over near where the governor's school is.
Where the ice plant.
Right. That's where the old ice plant was.
Right.
And the guy that Henry Harrison, I think it was his name, was a carriage driver for one of the Cokers.
Right.
So it was very, I mean, it happened a lot.
and one of my classmates,
Copeland,
Copeland,
Right.
Jimmy Copeland, Carolyn Copeland, they lived in Camellia Garden.
right,
Okay.
And so they were, and their father drove for somewhere, but there were a lot of people that lived in housing furnished by the white people that they worked for.
right.
Great question. Other question from our live audience in person. Yes, ma'am, over here.
Yes, thank you, Emory, for the book.
Thank
I've
you.
only been here 11 years. I taught at Hartsville High School with Mr. Andrews and for 5 years. And I live on this outside of the city limits. And it's Mr. Andrews who told me that I wouldn't volunteer in any committee or do anything for the government to see the county. So that relationship with Hartsville City and the county was important to me since I'm outside the city limits. But what I find in continuing this history here in Hartsville, that many of our seniors discuss leaving the city, you know, and it's not so much, it's not something here for them. They just feel that they can't put in the roots that the older citizens have put in and put the time in. So I think they're going to leave the city, work, and return at another time where their grandparents and parents are still here. And that's the youth of today. How do you feel, Jonathan?
Ruth, that's absolutely fact. When I was growing up, my class before me and before them, we couldn't get gainful employment in order to support the way that we wanted to live. Not our lifestyle, because our lifestyle was dull and boring over. We couldn't gain reasonable employment that would give us a reasonable wage in order to do what we needed to do in order to take care of the family. So we left in groves. We left. We went to New York, we went to Chicago, we went everywhere to get jobs. And eventually, after we established, I guess you could say, some sort of livelihood that we wanted to live and that we expected to have, we began to move back home. I got a whole bunch of friends that moved back here. They're living very quietly and they're enjoying their livelihood here because you can make money there that you couldn't make here. You know, there was money here to be made, but if you spend 4 years in college, it was going to be hard to come back here and work for $3,000 a year. And the teaching job that was offered me when I graduated, after 3 years in the Army, 2 years in Vietnam, 3 years of college, $3,300. It was a lot of money, but that could be better. So subsequently, my generation left. And when my generation left, the older generation started to die out. And the property wasn't looked after. It was taken over by the city or what have you. And it just city that we knew, it just kind of died. So my generation owes Hartsville, I think, the benefit of coming back, trying to do something to build it, to make it better.
Right.
It's hard, it's gonna be hard because economic stability is more than a mouthful. You gotta have that base, that ground level in order to do it. And wealth does not come very easily. So the process starts down here. And if you don't have a foothold here, it's gonna be hard to do it. But slowly but surely, people are coming back and they're improving the living standards of the area they live in.
And that's so important, like you said, you may have forgotten this old city, but you're building a new city, and that's important for longevity. Other questions from our audience members before we switch online?
I have one.
Sure.
Okay, so I loved hearing you talk about the different communities and the way that you knew them then. Is there anything that sticks out from those communities that you knew then that we could, whether it's an event or a tradition or anything like that, that we could bring into the community that we know now, into our downtown to make it more vibrant, but still pay tribute to the vibrancy that was in those communities then?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that can be done, and I would stray a little bit. But Dr. Heatley and I've talked to him about it several times, I want to start a leadership academy. Excuse me. I've written out the proposal, I've written out the plan. I want to identify black and white youth anywhere from 12 to 18 to start to build a sense of entrepreneurship, a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, and give them the skills for bringing in speakers to talk to them about how to be leaders and what they should do. Although we're still trying to talk them into doing it. But, he said, that's a lot of work. He said, that's a lot of responsibility. But there are a number of things that I think can be done, but there's no one idea. There's no one thing that can be done. It's a conglomerate of things, and it has to be a joint effort of everybody. It has to be a collaboration of both worlds. The world that's down here across the track and the world that's up here above the track. So there are a number of things, but you have to get together as a group and discuss these things. There are a lot of things that can be done. But if you don't talk, nothing's going to happen.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, Andrea, do we have questions from viewers?
We actually do. We have a couple of questions. First question I have, having had so many different careers to your credit, is there one that was your favorite and why?
Yes. All my careers were favorites. First of all, when I went to Indiana University and I was recruited then by the FBI, I said, I can't do that. No way in hell I can do it because, oh no, I can't do it. But I taught. I enjoyed teaching. I really enjoyed teaching. But I wasn't quite as happy as I wanted. I coached. I enjoyed coaching. I loved it a lot. Then I went to the Bureau, changed my entire perspective on life and on people. And I can truly say that the time that I spent in the FBI was a memorable experience that will be with me forever. I enjoyed the Army, but if I'd have gone back to Vietnam that third time, I knew I was going to die, so I had to get out of that machine. But I haven't had, and I don't want to sound phony. God's been good to me. Every time I got ready to make a wrong turn, somebody pushed me in another direction. That person back there was on me like you won't believe, to do the right thing. So every time I got ready to take a move in life, someone was there to make sure that I did the right thing. That is something I don't see that's happening now. Well, so we all got to talk. We got to talk to each other. We got to talk to each other. You got to talk to those children down there across the track. Those children down the track down there got to talk to us. Everybody's got to talk. So all my experiences have been great experiences. My philosophy, I don't have bad days. Some are better than others, but I don't have bad days anymore. Every day above ground is a plus.
Other questions, Andrew?
We have one more question, and that's, what would you tell others to motivate them civically?
Be true to yourself, be true to what you believe in, and try and help somebody. Your entire purpose here in life is to help somebody, to help yourself. You've got to be here for more than just yourself. If you have a purpose in life, then you would have lived your life successfully and you would have done the right thing. That's my belief. I do believe that.
Wow, great information. Oh, sorry, yes, ma'am, Ms. Graham.
Hello, Ms. Graham. I don't know if you that mask.
We were just, today is Earth Day, and so League of Women Voters was out cleaning up, picking up trash. Anyway, I haven't read the whole book, but I've been going through different.
Take your time. There's a lot in there.
I know you in the process of doing another book. Would you go outside of Hartsville, say, put some information in there about the county and the state? Would you be interested in that?
And just so y'all heard, Ms. Graham has asked if Mr. Waters would be interested in helping about things outside of Hartsville, county level, state level.
That would put me in another round, that would put me in another ball game. Right now, my interest is Hartsville,
Okay.
and see if we can do some things here to make Hartsville better, and see if I can get my lovely bride to come back here. We're here at least twice a month. That road is killing me.
Any other questions before we, oh, yes, ma'am, up here.
Yes, you have a lot to offer youth. Have you ever thought of mentoring and maybe starting smaller on a scale of like mentoring young people to lead them?
I do it every day. When my phone's ringing, I'm talking to younger people. When, lots of times, I got a couple of guys that call me from the bureau, from the FBI. I talked to them. I got a young lady who, she went to University of South Carolina. And my last years in the bureau, I was assigned to CIA for a couple of years, but I also came back to the bureau, and I had a top secret program where a young lady from University of South Carolina was sent to work for me. I saw the potential, and what I did is I called in my office one day and said, here's my inbox. Take that back to your desk and bring it back before you go home today. She goes, boss, I can't do it. I said, yes, you can. Go and do it. Go and do it. So she came back the next day. She was all frustrated. She said, I don't understand this, and we got to do it. Think about it. Common sense. Everything's common sense. Sit, look at it, decide what you're going to do with it. Happy to say that after I retired, I was promoted 3 times before I left. And I got a call not too long ago. She said, boss, guess what? I said, what? I got your old job. She goes, I'm in charge now. I said, Lillian, you got to help somebody else. She said, I'm doing the same thing you did for me. I'm helping somebody else. So I still try to mentor. It interferes with my golf, but I try.
Great story. Anything else from, yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I see in Walmart, when you come in, there's a board game there, Monopoly, but it's Hartsville Monopoly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know from math, I'm a math teacher, that games and the cell phone and all, kids get through information and retain it better if it's a game. So, Emory, your challenge to make this book a game. Okay. A different version of what's in Hartsville, discovering what's in Hartsville. And I'm telling you, it could reach, the teachers could take it in a classroom at, say, 5th grade level and move it up. And there's times that kids, when you say, oh, let's play a game today. Wow, okay, they ready to go. But a lot of information, the book can be broken down into a Monopoly kind of identification. Whether it's, cards for the name, as long as they go around and they have fun and it's another learning experience. Just putting it out there.
I hear you.
Oh, goodness. And of course, here at the museum, we're always looking for new and exciting ways to preserve this history. We're a staff of 2 with an mission of staff of 50, but with important things like this, preserving history, we're always looking for ways to reach new audiences and demographics. So that's a great suggestion. Even if Mr. Waters doesn't take it up, it's stuck in the back of my mind now. So thank you for bringing that up. Emory, this has been such a fascinating conversation, and thank you so much for agreeing to be here, and thank you so much for the book. As I mentioned, this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the history goes for African American experience. And I want to let people know that while Mr. Waters has done a great job at preserving the history through the book, there are other resources in our community, such as the Beltway Heritage Foundation, churches, the museum itself. We have so much history. It just takes a little digging, and I encourage all of us to go and dig a little further, as well as there are opportunities to help physically to preserve. I know Mr. Andrews and Ms. Graham both are very involved with preserving the cemetery down on Marion Avenue, and remind me, that's the second Saturday of the month, is that correct?
That's right.
Second Saturday of the month. So I encourage you all, if you have time, if you're available, please go out. I know that they could always use a hand in helping preserve that. Check out the Darlington County Historical Commission as well, a great wealth of knowledge. Emory, if people would rather have an online version of the book, how can they go about purchasing that?
Well, there's a Kindle version on Amazon. You can Google my name, Emory L. Waters, and it'll pop up. And you'll see the title and the book there. It's on there, but I think you'll enjoy this version better because you can put this in your library. Although you can put that in the library, but it's there. It's on Kindle, Amazon, so you'll be able to get it there. But before we leave, Matt,
sure.
First of all, let me thank the museum for taking this leap into preserving, echoing, and sounding the horn for African American Hartsville. This is a total city, not just African American city. And I see you doing a great job in bringing back some of the things that people never knew, people never seen, people not aware of. But I want to commend the museum for that. And I'd also like to commend you and Andrea for giving me the opportunity to come in and to get rid of my book, to not get rid of it, to distribute it throughout. And it's through your help that I've done over 500 copies. And like I said, we haven't done any advertising because I didn't want anybody to think that I was trying to do something to gain money. What I wanted to do was put down in writing a recapitulation of Hartsville the way that I remember it in my short 73 years. But thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. And if you want a copy of the book, you can give me a call. I will mail it to you. And believe me, the proceeds will be well used because they're going to organizations that can use the money. My church here, my church there, and my college, Benedict College.
Absolutely, and thank you for spearheading this. And just to echo what Mr. Waters said, we are also available to mail the book. We've mailed them as far as New York, Washington. So we're not staying local, we're spreading the word. And it's a community effort. We recognize that we need to preserve this history, and so we encourage you to come in and spend time with us, tell us those stories. We love photographs, especially. We're on the hunt for photographs, and they don't have to be anything specific. If you have photographs of children riding bikes on the roads, skateboarding, skating, swimming, whatever it may be, these are stories of regular citizens that help make Hartsville a better place. So please feel free to come in and share this with us. We won't even ask to keep them if we just get a copy, because we recognize that those are so special and they're heirlooms, and we want you guys to keep those. But this will just help us be able to tell the story better. And I believe also it's not just a museum effort. The city of Hartsville has also made strides in making the city more diverse and inclusive. I think it's actually part of the 10-year plan, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kudos to everybody for continuing to move forward and making the city that we know a better city. Just a reminder, if you came in late or you tuned in late, you can watch this lecture as well as all of our previous lectures in its entirety by either going to our Facebook page or going to our website, parksmuseum.org. While you're there, I'll encourage you to click on the top left button, there's a little donate button. We're always looking for donations to help provide these kind of programs as well as other programs. We will have our last lecture in May. We're finalizing dates, but we're looking to have this gentleman come in and tell about his travels across seas and how his growing up in Hartsville has been relatable to his time traveling and coming back to Hartsville and reestablishing roots here. So look for that day to come later. Emory, thank you so much. Just a reminder, Emory will be around after the lecture for more questions. Guys, we're open 10 to 4 Monday to Friday. Please hop in and see us. And as always, thanks for your continued support. Thanks.